The light rain drizzled over the silent city as Ethan strolled unhurriedly through the streets, illuminated by the glow of old lampposts. He had always been a pragmatic man, someone who relied on logic and action. But lately, his mind felt like a battlefield. Relentless thoughts haunted him, internal voices criticized his every step, and doubt lingered like a persistent shadow. Deep down, he knew his greatest obstacle wasn't outside of him. It was within. Something had to change. But how do you tame an untamable mind? That question echoed in his thoughts like an unsolvable riddle. Ethan didn't know it yet, but his path to freedom wouldn't require physical strength or superior intelligence. Instead, it would demand a new way of looking at his own mind. The transformation he sought wouldn't come from external achievements, but from an ancient and powerful teaching that few truly understand. What if the real enemy had never been the world around him, but the invisible patterns governing his thoughts? He was about to uncover a truth that could change his life forever. Ethan's mind was like a stormy ocean, and he was drowning in his own restlessness. Opportunities slipped through his fingers because the fear of failure paralyzed him. At work, he watched colleagues like James and Olivia move forward while he remained stuck, a prisoner of his own self-criticism. At home, the nights stretched long and silent, filled with insomnia and endless thoughts. One day, as he wandered aimlessly through a park, he came across an old monk named Thomas, sitting under the shade of a cherry tree. There was something about the man's tranquility that intrigued him. How could someone be so at peace in such a chaotic world? Driven by curiosity and a desperate need for change, Ethan approached him, unknowingly stepping into a conversation that would forever shift his perception. Thomas listened patiently as Ethan poured out his frustrations. When he finally fell silent, the monk smiled and asked, "If a man is chased by a tiger in a dream, what should he do?" Ethan frowned, confused. He can run, fight, or be devoured. But in the end, none of it matters, because the tiger was never real. Ethan's mind resisted the idea. His struggles felt real. His problems existed. But what if many of his fears were just like that tiger, created by his mind, fed by his attention, and turned into monsters by his own belief? For the first time, he began to see that his battle wasn't against the world. It was against his own perception of it. The days passed, and Ethan began to observe his mind more closely. He noticed how each negative thought triggered an automatic reaction: hesitation, anxiety, frustration. He recalled a story Thomas had once told him about a young, impatient archer. This archer trained relentlessly, but always missed his shot whenever someone was watching. One day, his master took him to a well and asked him to look at the water. "What do you see?" the master asked. "My reflection, distorted and trembling," the young man replied. Then the master let the water settle and asked again. "Now I see clearly," the archer said. The master smiled and said, "Your mind is like this water. As long as it is disturbed by fear and haste, your vision will be distorted. But if you learn to calm it, you will see the path with clarity." Ethan realized that just like the archer, he needed to train his mind, not just his skills. Over time, these teachings became a part of him. He learned that he didn't have to fight against his thoughts, but simply observe them without clinging to them. When doubts arose, he let them pass, like leaves carried away by the wind. When fear appeared, he acknowledged it but refused to let it control him. As Thomas often said, the mind is like a wild horse. You can try to restrain it by force and be dragged along, or you can learn to ride it. For the first time, Ethan felt that he had a choice. He was no longer a hostage to his own mind. He was learning to master it. One quiet afternoon, Ethan faced the greatest test of his journey. At work, a new opportunity arose, a challenging project that could lead to the promotion he had always wanted. In the past, he would have hesitated, consumed by the fear of not being good enough. But this time, as anxiety began to rise, he remembered Thomas's teaching. Fear doesn't have to disappear for you to take action. It just needs to be understood. Instead of running away, he took a deep breath and accepted the challenge. Not because he was certain of success, but because he finally understood that his true enemy had never been failure. It had always been the paralysis created by his own mind. The days that followed were intense. Ethan felt the pressure, but instead of getting lost in it, he applied everything he had learned. When negative thoughts surfaced, he saw them for what they truly were, passing clouds in the sky of his consciousness. One night, while working late, something shifted inside him. He realized that he didn't need to fight uncertainty or external challenges. The real battle was internal. It wasn't about controlling everything around him. It was about controlling his reaction to it. His mind, once a prison, was beginning to become an ally. At the final presentation of the project, something surprising happened. Ethan, who had always feared public speaking, felt the adrenaline rushing through his veins. But instead of letting it overpower him, he embraced it as part of the moment. Rather than seeing nervousness as a sign of weakness, he saw it as energy, a fuel for his performance. He spoke clearly, without being held back by the fear of making mistakes, without being a prisoner of expectations. For the first time, he experienced true freedom, not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. As he left the meeting, he found Thomas waiting outside, as if the monk had already known what had happened. Thomas smiled and asked one final question. "Does the tiger still haunt you?" Ethan smiled back. No, the tiger hadn't disappeared, but now he knew it was never real. His greatest enemy had never been the outside world. It had always been the way he saw himself. And with that realization, he felt a deep sense of relief, as if he had finally learned the art of riding the wild horse that was his own mind. Ethan's journey teaches us something powerful. Our greatest enemy has never been outside of us, but within our own minds. We spend our lives running from fears we create ourselves, feeding doubts that never come true, and trapping ourselves in narratives that only exist because we choose to believe in them. But when we learn to observe our minds without being ruled by them, something changes. Insecurity may still arise, challenges will continue to exist, but we no longer have to be their captives. True freedom is not the absence of problems, but the ability to face them without being dragged down by the internal chaos that once controlled us. And just like Ethan, you too can learn to master your own mind. There will always be moments of doubt, but now you know you don't have to fight them. Just recognize them for what they really are, passing shadows. So, the next time you feel like you're being chased by an invisible tiger, ask yourself, is it real or just a reflection of your mind? And if you wish to continue this journey of discovery, I'll see you in the next reflection. There is always another step to take on the path to wisdom.